Welcome back, and today we are going to be taking a look at the 9.3 premium for the British factory, the Hunter FGA.9. This thing used to be one of the best planes in the entire game. On top of it, also with premium bonuses, making this thing an absolute no-brainer to pick up. Nowadays at 9.3 without flares, you already know what kind of time you are going to be in for. This thing is no exception. The flight performance didn't really carry through that well. The Hunter FGA.9 is one of the planes that relies on its engine power, its speed, and its lack of maneuverability to hold that speed. Nowadays, with all the supersonics around, you get Lightnings on your ass, you get MiG-19s on your ass, F-104s running you down. Really, there is very little counterplay in the grand scheme of things, but it's still one of the better 9.3s in the game. Now, I want to thank today's sponsor, Hawkeye, one of my patrons. He donated me a lot of money to fly out this thing, to review it for him, and to just showcase it. And it took a lot longer than I was intending it to be, mainly because just when he requested it, the patch came out. I need to cover the new stuff first. He was totally cool about it, so thank you very much for being patient with me. And thank you very much for supporting today's video. But let's take a look at the FGA.9, the loadout, and why I'm running it this way. I'm going to be running full tank because 12 minutes is basically perfect. Otherwise you are running about 3 to 4 minutes. And with the increase of map size, you're going to be on 1.5 minutes of fuel by the time you merge with your first enemy if you rush straight in, which is just not really feasible at the moment. Of course, the loadout, we have some AIM-9Es, not really that special. And then we are running rockets as per usual as flares. However, with this one, they actually don't shoot one at a time. They shoot 2 at a time, so you need to carry a few more of them. So I'm opting to run the AP rockets for the simple reason that these are relatively light. And you get more of them. So I can carry 6 on each wing, meaning I have 6 charges of flares. Not the most amount, but you shouldn't be running into that many all-aspect missiles anyway. It's still kind of rough, but let's take a look at how we are going to be doing today. The Hunter FGA.9 is one of those planes that's really reliant on what you are fighting. Knowing what you are up against is very, very important. You need to know what you can run from, what you can energy trap, what you can kind of turn against. Something like an F-104A is of course a bit of a no-brainer when you are familiar with the upper tiers of the game, but you still need to know basically every plane that you are up against, because the Hunter used to be a very one-dimensional plane. You just stayed fast, you kept your energy, and basically nothing could touch you. Nowadays, if they catch you, you can bet your ass that they will be out-turning you, so you need to time using your air brake. You need to time slowing down, or you need to understand that he is going slow enough to the point where you can actually abuse the lack of energy retention on the enemy's part, where you can run away again. Again, it's 9.3. You are going to be running into a lot of vehicles that you just can't really do anything about. Something like the F5C is a very prime example for it. And I again will start hammering on this, just like I did with the F100F video, which I came to realize that it says F1 oof, which is pretty damn fitting. The Hunter feels definitely a lot nicer to fly. It's a little bit stiffer, it doesn't pull nearly as much AOA, but it actually holds its speed. And it feels like an aircraft, and you can point this thing wherever you want, hold the trigger down, and gun some people down. The velocity of the guns isn't that fantastic, but you do get 600 rounds, and when you have 4 of them, they hit pretty damn hard. It's obviously not that great of a platform, however, because it doesn't pull that hard. The Hunter is essentially on rails. It doesn't pull much AOA, and it doesn't turn that well. This lack of pull is then kind of compounded by the fact that the guns are 1, positioned very low, and 2, they just don't have the best velocity. They only go about 810 meters a second out of the barrel, and the muzzle velocity retention, or whatever you want to call it, the drag on these shells, is pretty hefty on top of it. So you can't really lead that much, and if you do, and you shoot at long range, your shells will probably miss, because this thing takes quite a bit of practice to aim well at longer ranges. It's not like it used to be, where it was just 810 meters until it would hit something, until the rounds would despawn. With the drag changes, the guns are kind of iffy. They still hit very hard, but it's just one of those downsides that you can play around, but it mainly again depends on what you are fighting. If you are at 9.3 and you are in a full down tier to 8.3, and then this won't be an issue at all, because you have the performance to keep up with the enemy. And if you have the performance, this thing, the lack of pull and all of those kind of things aren't really that big of an issue. It's mostly when you are fighting planes that you can't really hang with, where these issues really shine through. The Hunter is one of those planes that's extremely strong versus the planes it's good against. but it becomes essentially helpless the second it's countered a little bit, because this thing doesn't really have an answer to the dynamic playstyle that you kind of require in the era BC nowadays. But let's take a look at my absolute piss poor aim here. We crit the F3H, we blow him apart, and he just hits the SU-25 before we do so. So I thought I didn't really help him out, but he did say thank you, so I'm hoping that he's gonna make it back to base. And I'm gonna try to keep him alive and see if I can do something. The Hunter is pretty ideal in this position. I'm able to kind of just loop over into these clouds. I'm somewhat unspotted, and I will be able to maintain a pretty decent speed and do this all day long. So flying in a defensive manner when you are helping someone, when the enemy is focused on something else, you can kind of just pretend to be a train and run these trains all day long. The Hunter airframe is pretty good at holding speed, and the engine of this one is just so much better than the J34 or the Hunter F1. So you can just run these trains all day long, and if the enemy kind of steps into your web when you are doing that, you're gonna have a very easy time just cleaning everyone up. F3H comes head on, we just spray our rounds off because we have plenty of ammo, and I need to make sure that people die at this point, so I'm not really trying to be that ammo conservative. I just want to make sure that people die whenever I get near them. And then we have an A10, the absolute menace of this BR. Rockets come in clutch, he misses, and because he doesn't try to commit into the head-on, because he probably thinks I'm dead, he just dodges and he gives us a very easy shot. And this is very common when you go head-on with SU-25s or A10s. When they shoot a missile at you and they know you don't have countermeasures, they very often will just break off, dodge way too early, and basically give you a free kill. Personally, in hindsight, this was the first game that I did in the thing, and it wasn't going that fantastically. I wasn't aware that these rockets shot per 2, so I only ended up with 3 flares, and that's why I'm running 6 of them now. This one I can outrun pretty easily, I can deal with pretty handily. I'll get rid of it, I'll dodge that one as well, it's only an AIM-9B, and we'll just get away here. In retrospect, I would have shot an AIM-9E at the missile that the A10 shot at me, because that meant that I would have had 2 more flares now to flare if someone shot from above, if I'm stalled out, or maybe even in a rear aspect. Now I basically can only flare in the front aspect by shooting a missile at the enemy AIM-9L. Works quite well overall. It does trigger the A10s a little bit more, because they notice that you're trying to do something to shoot down their missile, and they might just go into the full commit head-on mode, making you miss out on the kill. But staying alive is much more important than getting a kill right there. An A10 without missiles isn't that much of a threat. We are now trying to get away here. The AV8 is very annoying to deal with. We can bleed him of energy, so I would personally go into a little bit of a spiral like this, make him pull after us, stay above 700 to 800, preferably near 1000, and then the thrust of the AV8 isn't that good, as well as the fact that the Harrier of course burns a lot of speed. Don't try to reverse them, you're gonna have an absolute terrible time. Try to lead the missile, go up into the clouds, dodge the F3H, missile doesn't connect, he sees it and he dodges it. And we just kind of go vertical here, which sounds like a fantastic idea, but you might be able to see something in the corner of your eye. We're gonna have an absolute little disaster. The issue there is that I wasn't able to pull into the missile in time. And that means that by the time I was able to go into the missile, the burner has burnt out and I can't shoot my own missile at the missile anymore. And that's why having rockets is nice, but that's also why I'm carrying 6 now. Because only having 3 charges is really just not it. As apparent by the map, we fortunately survived the encounter. We just landed to reload our ammo because we were running dangerously low. So here we have an A4E, a MiG-15 and a G91. Neither of these planes I'm really worried about. The G91 flies directly overhead. He's not paying attention at all. We squeeze the trigger, we'll blow him up. And we just continue on towards the next guy. A4E is basically flying straight. I'm expecting him to not really be paying attention. And that looks to be bang on the money, because he accepts that missile with his open asshole. And then we just kind of look around. We keep our speed. We're not really worried about anything here other than that MiG-15. And it's only because he's diving on us. The airframe there, it's not really an issue. We are much quicker. We are much more responsive at high speed. And even though I was complaining about the faults of the Hunter, because this thing actually has a working engine, you can actually fly it like a Hunter. The F1 is severely limited because it can't really stay in that high speed where the Hunter is at its best. This thing actually can, and we are now trying to dive away from an F100, not because I am that worried about an F100, it's because he is accompanied by a lot of subsonic planes that I just don't want to deal with. So I'm hoping to run away from the Limb 5 to kind of tell him, don't bother chasing me, you won't catch me anyway. And then that missile comes in, I'm forced to turn, and if he had shot that missile about 5 seconds earlier, that Limb 5 probably would have stuck on me. So now we are going to go and air brake a little bit, because the F100 will catch me. And I need to go slower than him to actually make him overshoot. He pulls a lot more AOA. He kind of just flies underneath us. And, I mean, he makes it a very predictable shot. We crit him and he instantly goes into a dead spin that the F100 is notorious for. We are now not that quick. We are only going 800 kilometers an hour, which isn't that ideal when you are in a Hunter. FJ4 is coming in. And if I fly away from him and just accelerate away, I should be able to outrun him by the time he gets near us. And if we don't, it's not that big of a deal because it's only an FGA4. I am not too worried about dogfighting something like an FGA4 opposed to something like a Sabre that will absolutely ruin your day. Especially something like the CL-13B. It's one of the worst planes to fight in this thing because it's kind of you but better. Of course, something like a MiG-19 will ruin you as well. But at least there is some kind of counterplay because there is a supersonic. It's more prone to making mistakes. It's easier to mess up in the MiG-19 if you are somewhat unfamiliar with the aircraft. Whereas with the CL-13B, they can essentially just point their mouse on you, and if you can't outrun it, you are going to die. It's very easy to die to something like a CL-13B because it's one of those very hand-holdy planes. It's not a good aircraft at all at the moment. 9.7, no flares, only AIM-9Bs, subsonic. It goes like 11.21 in a straight line on the sea level. It's just not it. But at the same time, the CL-13B is an absolute apex predator when it comes to role-playing as a heat-seeking missile. That thing will park on your 6 and you're gonna have a very hard time getting rid of it. Because very often they'll get 1, maybe 2 kills, which means they have a whole ass 900 rounds and a missile to send your way. And trust me, they will. But the other subsonics are pretty easy to deal with. Limb 5s are annoying to a degree, but they have the same limitation as the MiG-17 and the MiG-15 kind of do. Sure, they are fast, sure they have good acceleration, but they're also massive bricks at high speeds, and if you just sit at high speed, you're gonna have a pretty easy time. However, this Limb 5 is not going high speed, and neither are we. We are just trying to get shots on him as he's busy with the rest of our team. And as you can tell, it's pretty annoying for me to get my guns on him. He was not really paying attention to me at all. He was just trying to fly in the furball, trying to target multiple people. He's in the clouds, he doesn't see everyone, and he still ends up being absolutely annoying to deal with, just simply because he's so much more maneuverable. After killing him, we keep going straight. We meet the MiG-19, and let me tell you why cruise kills are so important. He merges underneath us, he's slamming on that elevator, and he should have the advantage, but I'm going a bit slower. I have an ace crew. Not a very spectacular kill, but those are the kind of matches where you can utilize being a hunter. Utilize your speed, your energy, your ability to just kind of stay at a certain speed range and run trains on literally everyone. Now here's an Uptier where it kind of changes the way that you play, and you can tell that I will be a lot more aggressive and I will be trying to get a lot more kills very quickly. With the Uptiers, you have to play it fast. With the down tiers, you can play it as slow as you want, and as long as you don't get a missile sent your way as you're going relatively slow, you should be able to pace yourself quite well and just play it like you would with a hunter. Now with an Uptier, you're much more reliant on 1, your aim, and 2, your positioning and just your target selection in general. You need to pick the right targets, and you need to make sure that you go for the guys that you can actually kill. Because very often you'll end up going for someone, and if you don't take into account that they might accelerate to the point where they're faster than you within like 5 to 10 seconds, by the time you're almost in gun range, you're gonna end up without a kill. Now you might think, isn't that a waste of a missile? Yeah, but at that range the Yak-38M won't dodge it. And I have much less chance of it missing and then him going into cancer rolls and then him losing a lot of speed, him overshooting. And I have to run away, potentially get R60. It all doesn't sound that enticing. If I can choose between one missile that's 100% sure to kill, with a missile that's otherwise rather unreliable, all my guns, and potentially him getting away with it, I know what I'm gonna be choosing. Now yeah, we were a second too late, and if I had gunned him I probably would have gotten a kill, because in the end he got gunned down by the guy behind me. But I didn't know he was there, so that doesn't really count. We're just gonna gloss over that fact for a second, shall we? But I hope you can notice that I'm just trying to be fast, sweeping motions through the battlefield, and I'm just trying to collect everyone that gets near me. You fly it like a neuron activation plane and it works kind of well. You just need to be wary of people on your 6. Especially if they're catching you, especially if they have good missiles. Now, sometimes you'll see me shooting these rockets off, and that's when the game progresses into a later stage, where I notice there's not that many planes with either good or all aspect missiles left, so I can dump a bit of weight. Every rocket that I shoot off is about 40 kilograms, and just like with the F100 video, just like with the A32 video, every bit of weight helps with these kind of planes, because you are very reliant on not being a fat piece of shit, which is very hard to do when you are flying a Hunter. So I'm just trying to shed as much weight as I can. Was about to shoot a missile on this guy, but he's simply too fast. He's probably paying attention and it's not worth risking the missile for. So I'm gonna let him fly off and engage the 2 guys on our 6. First we whiff this absolute easy shot on the MiG-21, and then the Su-7 dies in front of us and we end up with nothing. But there comes the Su-25 and we still have rockets as well as missiles left. So what do? We go head on with him. We shoot a few rounds and we miss. Such is the life of the Hunter. At least my life with the Hunter. I am not too well versed in aiming this plane. It's okay. I used to be better with it, but I've always found it a bit awkward to use. Sometimes it just clicks, and some games I'm absolutely going over, and the other game I'm just missing everything, and I underlead everything, and then I overlead everything, and just I'm not the biggest fan of the Hunters. They're okay planes, especially in the right circumstances, but in general, especially with the constant Uptier matchmaker, this thing isn't that fantastic to fly, but it's infinitely better than the J-34, the F6, as well as the Hunter F1. We ambush the F104A because we kind of have to. We fly away from the runway and fly directly into the next match. Now we have a MiG-19 and a MiG-21. The MiG-21 dies away. MiG-19 comes head on. I'll take it all day long. He's not going to have a shot. I have a massive advantage when it comes to the firepower and the head-on. And he won't be able to even pull into that. And I'm very keen on slamming MiG-19s. They are mostly my main priority threat in this thing. And I'm not sure what it is, but they see a Hunter in a head-on and they think, yeah, I'm going to take it. Probably desperation. A lot of people think the MiG-19 is bad for some reason. Sure, it's kind of sucky against like the all-aspect missiles. But this entire bracket is. The MiG-19 is no exception. No good missiles, no flares. Sure, it's a bit rough at 9.3, but the entire bracket is. The entire bracket suffers from like the 2 or 3 planes that you will run into that ruin your day. If the MiG-19 had flares, it'd be pretty good at 10.3 even. This thing is severely under-tiered. It's completely criminal, but this entire bracket is filled with planes that are just absolute bullshit, like the F104A is. F104A video coming out pretty soon as well. MiG-19 I'm not too sure on, because I've already made like 4 videos on the plane. Maybe if the request is high enough. If you do want to see it, let me know. But I'm not sure how many people are still interested in that plane, because it's been covered to death. It's one of those planes that everyone has made a video on at this point. But hey, if you want to see it, make sure to let me know. And then we have a Q5 that's being absolutely gangbanged by, well, 2 guys already that are both gonna have a pretty easy time killing it. So I'm coming in, trying to see if I can help out, because it seems like they're not having the best of times. But the Q5 is pretty low. He's crit, so I'm just gonna break off here, and I'm just gonna fly off. And then I realized this FHU was the guy that shot down the Su-25 that I set on fire. So after I noticed them just missing, and that the F5C is gonna steal from the FHU, I'm going to return the favor in making sure that I take one of his kills as well. Thank you very much. And then we go after the MiG-23. It's a BN without flare, so I'm just going to shoot a missile at him, force him to dodge, pushes him into the F5C, and the F5C is going to have an absolute field day cleaning that guy up, and if he doesn't, I mean, I will. MiG-23 loses his wing, and well, he's dead. And then this MiG-23, he has been going absolute Mac Jesus in orbit. He's AFK probably, and he's not really contributing at all, so I'm just going to sit directly in front of him to make sure that I don't miss the head-on in any case. Hold the trigger down and just blow him back to the hangar. Thank you Hawkeye for sponsoring today's video. I hope it satisfied. The rest of you, thank you all for watching, and you'll see me in the next one.